I want to go to Leon Panetta right now, the former defense secretary, former CIA director, who told Sky News not too long ago, and Leon, it's always good to have you, but I was intrigued by these comments about Vladimir Putin. When Putin is cornered, and that makes him dangerous, because when you corner a bully can be very dangerous. He's at that stage right now.
No, there's no question, Neil. At this point, Putin is fighting a two-front war, one in Ukraine and one in Moscow. He's got hardliners who are criticizing him for the way this war is going. And it's pretty clear that the tide of war has really changed in Ukraine and that Putin is losing. So as a result of that, he is feeling cornered. And when he's cornered, Putin will strike out, as bullies will, when they're basically prevented from using any other options. He is in a place where he doesn't have a lot of places to go, and that's what makes him very dangerous right now.
He seems very hot and cold, Leon, though. I mean, now this latest overture, he says he's kind of done with this military call-up. I believe at the time we were about 222,000 Russian soldiers. But we're getting this from him, so I don't know how accurate it is. That's close to the 300,000 he wanted to call up, but he was having a devil of a time getting reservists in the first place. Most were trying to flee the country or starting violent incidents at, reserve call-up centers. So what's the real deal?
Well, it goes back to what I said. He's confronting problems back in Moscow. He's had a hard time mobilizing the forces that he's been trying to put together. A lot of have been leaving. There's really a lot of criticism about the war going on in Moscow, and then add to that the hardliners who are being very critical of what's going on. You put all of that together, he's having a hard time being able to put together the kind of military capability that would be able to respond in Ukraine, and the Ukrainians are taking advantage of it. I mean, they've been able to take over literally over 1,000 square miles, both in the east and the south, and they're going to continue to do that. And I think that's what they should do, very frankly, is continue their offensive to push Putin and Russia out of Ukraine.
I just can't see an end.
They ought to be pushing.
I'm sorry, Leon. I can't see an end game to this, because if he chooses to, leave Ukraine or a way to end this war, he's got to leave with something. He has said those annexed territories are given. The Ukrainians, as you indicate, are saying anything but a given. In fact, they're winning back some of that land annexed. So what is it? Because right now he's been listening to hardliners back in his country who say double down. But a good many Russians showing protest all over the country, and those who are reluctant to be, called up for this war, that's not a good war to them, he's kind of stuck.
Well, that's a good way to put it. I think he is stuck. Intelligence continues to say that Putin is not at a point where he's prepared to negotiate or try to find an off-ramp here. And so he's going to continue to double down. And that's exactly what he's doing with these missile barrages. Although I think, again, that's a sign of weakness, because in those missile barrages, half of them are being taken down. They are not being effective at trying to paralyze Ukraine in terms of their infrastructure. And I think the most important thing right now that the United States and the allies need to do is to develop a comprehensive air defense system for Ukraine. Israel is able, when Hamas sends missiles out, to knock down over 90% of those missiles. We need to see the same kind of capability given to the Ukrainians.
What do we do, meanwhile, about the Saudis? And, of course, they led this effort on the part of OPEC countries to cut production, I should say, 2 million barrels a day. The administration's promised a response. Some say stop sending the Saudis arms, period. What would you do?
Look, I'm a believer that that the most important thing we need to do in the Middle East is to build strong alliances with our moderate Arab friends in the Middle East, along with Israel. That's the best way to deal with terrorism, and it's the best way to deal with Iran. And we had that kind of relationship with Saudi Arabia in the past. I hope we can get back to that kind of relationship.
But moderate friends, even if they're moderate friends, they don't cut production together. Moderate friends don't cut production and raise costs on you. Whatever their beef with this president, I certainly get that. But I'm just wondering, are they really our friends when they do something like that?
Well, you know, I think the way to approach this is through diplomacy and sending people directly to Saudi Arabia to talk these issues through. I think they will listen. We have a lot of leverage on Saudi Arabia, particularly with regards to weapons. I would hate to see that relationship go sour right now because, frankly, the Middle East is another area we need to pay attention to. We've got failed states. We've got problems with terrorism. We have problems with Iran. It is incredibly important that we try to put together a strong alliance that can confront those issues.
Well, good luck with that for the time being. But Leon Panetta, great seeing you again, my friend. Be well. Thank you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.